The morning started like any other morning for Captain Hyun as he walked into the military command center in Seoul, South Korea. He was drinking his coffee and checking the daily reports when the alarms began screaming throughout the building. Red lights flashed everywhere and soldiers ran in all directions. Something was very wrong. Lieutenant Nari burst through the door holding a tablet computer in her shaking hands. Her face was white with fear, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "To Captain Hyun, so you need to see this right now. Our satellites are picking up something impossible in space above Earth. The readings don't make any sense, but they are definitely real." Captain Hyun took the tablet and looked at the screen. What he saw made his coffee cup fall from his hand and crash on the floor. Thousands of massive objects had appeared in Earth's orbit during the night. They were arranged in perfect formation around the planet like a giant net made of metal and fire. "How many ships are we looking at?" Lieutenant Nari asked Captain Hyun as he stared at the impossible sight. "Our computers are still counting, sir, but the current estimate is around 10,000 vessels. Each one appears to be at least 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. They are bigger than our largest cities, sir." Captain Hyun felt his heart sink into his stomach. 10,000 warships was more military power than Earth had ever seen in its entire history. The combined fleets of every nation on Earth would barely equal 1% of what was now surrounding their planet. "Have they tried to communicate with us?" Yet asked Captain Hyun. "No, sir. They have been completely silent since they appeared. But our sensors are detecting massive energy readings from every ship. Whatever weapons they have are definitely active and ready to fire." Captain Hyun walked to the big screen on the wall that showed a map of the world. Red dots were appearing everywhere, as other military bases around the globe detected the alien fleet. Phone calls were coming in from the United States, Russia, China, Japan, and every other major military power. Everyone was asking the same question that Captain Hyun was asking himself. What do these aliens want, and why are they here? The answer came exactly 1 hour later when every television screen, radio, and computer on Earth suddenly showed the same message. A tall figure appeared on the screens wearing dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Its face was hidden behind a metal mask, but its voice was clear and cold. "People of Earth, I am known as the Harvester. I command the fleet that now surrounds your planet. You have exactly 24 hours to surrender completely and unconditionally. If you surrender, your people will become workers in our galactic empire. If you refuse to surrender, we will destroy every city, every military base, and every sign of human civilization on this planet. You have no weapons that can harm our ships. You have no technology that can match our power. Resistance is completely useless. You have 24 hours to decide." The message ended and normal broadcasts returned, but nobody was watching normal television anymore. Every human on Earth was calling their families, checking on their loved ones, and trying to understand what had just happened to their world. Captain Hyun immediately called his daughter Sue, who lived in the city above the underground command center. Her phone rang many times before she finally answered. "Papa, what is happening up here? Everyone is running around and screaming about aliens. The traffic is completely stopped because everyone is trying to leave the city at the same time." "Stay inside your apartment, Sue. Lock all the doors and windows and wait for me to call you again. Do not go outside no matter what you hear or see. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Papa, but I am scared." "Are the aliens really going to destroy our city?" Captain Hyun wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, but he could not lie to his daughter. The alien fleet had enough firepower to turn every major city on Earth into glass and ash within minutes. "I don't know what will happen, Sue, but I promise you that every soldier on Earth will fight to protect our families and our home. We will not surrender without a fight." After ending the call, Captain Hyun looked around the command center. Dozens of officers and technicians were working frantically at their computers and communication systems. They were trying to contact other military bases around the world and coordinate some kind of response to the alien threat. Lieutenant Nari approached Captain Hyun with another report. Sir, we are receiving calls from military leaders in every major country. They want to set up a video conference in 30 minutes to discuss our options. What options? Asked Captain Hyun. We have fighter jets that can barely reach the edge of space, while they have 10,000 warships with weapons we cannot even understand. What options do we possibly have against an enemy like this? Lieutenant Nari looked at her captain with determination in her eyes. Sir, my grandfather fought against impossible odds during the Korean War. He always told me that when facing a stronger enemy, you must fight smarter, not harder. Maybe we cannot match their technology, but we know our own planet better than they do. Captain Hyun nodded slowly. She was right that humans had one advantage over these alien invaders. Earth was their home, and they knew every mountain, every forest, every city, and every hiding place. The aliens might have superior technology, but they were fighting on unfamiliar ground against people who had nothing left to lose. The video conference began with military leaders from around the world appearing on screens throughout the command center. General Smith from the United States spoke first. Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing the greatest threat in human history. Our intelligence agencies estimate that each alien warship has enough firepower to destroy a country. We cannot win a conventional war against this enemy. General Petrov from Russia disagreed. We cannot simply surrender and become slaves. If we are going to die, we should die fighting for our freedom and our families. General Wang from China suggested a different approach. Perhaps we should consider their offer of surrender. At least some humans would survive as workers, rather than everyone dying in a hopeless war. Captain Hyun listened to the debate for several minutes before speaking up. Generals, with all respect, I believe we are thinking about this problem in the wrong way. These aliens expect us to either surrender immediately or fight them ship to ship in space. But what if we do neither of those things? What do you mean? Captain asked General Smith. These aliens have conquered 47 other worlds according to their message. Every victory has probably been quick and clean, with the enemy either surrendering or being destroyed in direct combat. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to fight by their rules. Lieutenant Nari understood what her captain was suggesting. Sir, are you talking about guerrilla warfare like the resistance movements during World War II? Exactly. We cannot match their technology, but we can make their occupation of Earth so costly and difficult that they decide we are not worth conquering. Every human on this planet becomes a potential soldier. Every building becomes a fortress. Every street becomes a battlefield. The other generals began to understand the strategy. Instead of meeting the aliens in open battle where human forces would be destroyed quickly, they would force the invaders into the kind of urban warfare that had frustrated major military powers throughout history. But how do we coordinate resistance? Movements across the entire planet, asked General Smith. We use the same communication networks that brought us together for this conference. The aliens may control space around Earth, but they do not control our internet, our radio networks, or our underground communication systems. We can share information and coordinate attacks in real time. General Petrov smiled for the first time since the crisis began. It is a dangerous plan, Captain, but it gives us something that surrender does not. It gives us hope. The conference continued for 2 more hours as military leaders planned the greatest resistance movement in human history. They had less than 22 hours before the alien deadline expired. 22 hours to prepare their planet and their people for a war that would determine the future of the human race. Captain Hyun ended the conference and looked at Lieutenant Nari. We have a lot of work to do, Lieutenant. Contact every resistance cell, every special forces unit, and every person willing to fight. Tell them that Earth will not surrender. Tell them that humanity will not go quietly into slavery. Yes, sir, replied Lieutenant Nari, as she began making calls to military units around the world. Captain Hyun walked to the window that looked out over Seoul. Somewhere above the city, 10,000 alien warships waited for humanity to surrender. But they were about to learn something important about the human species. When pushed to the edge of extinction, humans do not surrender. They fight, back with everything they have, and they never give up hope. The 24-hour deadline passed at exactly noon when the first alien landing ships began falling from the sky like burning meteors. Each ship was the size of a football stadium and carried 500 alien soldiers armed with energy weapons that could cut through steel like paper. The Harvester had decided that humanity needed to see alien power before they would surrender. But when the first wave of landing ships touched down in major cities around the world, they found something unexpected. The cities were empty. Streets, that should have been filled with millions of panicked civilians, were completely deserted. Buildings stood silent and dark, as if every human on Earth had simply vanished into thin air. Commander Vex stepped out of his landing ship in the center of downtown Tokyo. His energy scanner showed no life signs for kilometers in every direction. Behind him, 300 alien warriors emerged from the ship, expecting to find crowds of terrified humans begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty cars, abandoned in the middle of roads and traffic lights, blinking uselessly over silent intersections. "Where are all the humans?" asked Sub-Commander Karn as he scanned the surrounding buildings with his weapon ready. "They must be hiding in the buildings," replied Commander Vex. "Begin systematic searches of every structure. Find the humans and bring them to the central collection point for processing." What Commander Vex did not know was that Farmer Minho was watching them from a hidden position on top of a building 800 meters away. Minho had never been a soldier, but his grandfather had taught him to shoot during the old wars between North and South Korea. Now he lay perfectly still with a rifle that had been modified with alien energy cells captured from crashed scout ships. Minho waited patiently as the alien soldiers spread out across the plaza below. He had been given specific orders from the Resistance Command. Do not engage large groups. Wait for isolated targets. Make every shot count and disappear immediately after firing. The goal was not to win battles, but to make the aliens afraid to move in small groups. An alien soldier separated from the main group and walked toward a coffee shop to investigate strange sounds coming from inside. Minho lined up his shot carefully and squeezed the trigger. The modified rifle fired a beam of energy that punched through the alien's armor like it was made of paper. The soldier collapsed without making a sound. Commander Vex heard the energy discharge and immediately ordered his troops to take defensive positions. But there was no follow-up attack. No more shots came from the buildings. His energy scanners detected no life signs in the direction the shot had come from. It was as if the shooter had simply vanished into the air. "Search that building," commanded Commander Vex, pointing toward the spot where he thought the shot had originated. A squad of 10 alien soldiers entered the building and began searching floor by floor. What they found was a maze of empty offices connected by hidden passages that led to underground tunnels. By the time they reached the roof where Minho had been positioned, he was already 3 blocks away, moving through subway tunnels that connected to hidden resistance bunkers. Similar attacks were happening in every major city around the world. In New York, Engineer Gina led a team of 12 resistance fighters through sewers and maintenance tunnels beneath Manhattan. Her team included a high school teacher, a retired police officer, a computer programmer, and a grandmother who had survived the Korean War. They had spent weeks preparing explosive devices made from common household chemicals and fertilizer. The alien forces had landed in Central Park, expecting to use it as a base for controlling the entire city. They set up energy barriers and defensive positions, while their engineers began constructing a communication tower that would coordinate alien forces across the entire North American continent. Gina watched the alien construction work through a periscope that extended up through a storm drain. She counted 40 alien soldiers and 6 heavy vehicles. Her team had enough explosives to destroy the communication tower, but they would have to get within 50 meters of the alien perimeter to place the charges effectively. The attack came at 3 in the morning, when most of the alien guards were focused on the sky watching for human aircraft that never came. Gina and her team emerged from manholes and storm drains at 12 different points around the alien camp. They moved like shadows, staying low and using abandoned cars and park benches for cover. Teacher Min had volunteered to carry the largest explosive device, even though it meant he probably would not survive the mission. He crawled on his stomach for 200 meters through wet grass until he reached the base of the alien communication tower. The explosive device was set to detonate in 60 seconds, which gave him just enough time to reach minimum safe distance if he ran at full speed. Chatters placed the device and began running toward the extraction point where Gina was waiting with a motorcycle. Behind him, alien guards finally noticed movement in the darkness and began firing energy beams that lit up the night sky like deadly fireworks. Min felt the heat from several near misses but kept running as fast as his legs could carry him. The explosion shook the entire city when it came. The alien communication tower disintegrated in a ball of fire that could be seen from space. Secondary explosions from alien equipment created a chain reaction that destroyed half of their base camp and killed dozens of soldiers who had thought they were safe behind their energy barriers. Commander Vex received reports of similar attacks from alien bases around the world. Communication towers destroyed in London, supply depots blown up in Berlin, transport ships sabotaged in Moscow. Every alien position was under constant attack from an enemy that struck without warning and disappeared before retaliation was possible. The Harvester contacted his ground commanders from his flagship high above Earth. His voice was filled with anger and frustration as he demanded explanations for the failures. How is it possible that primitive humans are destroying our equipment and killing our soldiers? Demanded the Harvester. You have superior weapons, superior armor, and superior training. Sir, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we have faced before, replied Commander Vex. They refuse to meet us in open battle. Instead, they attack from hiding and retreat before we can respond. They know this planet better than we do, and they are using that knowledge against us. Then burn the cities, ordered the Harvester. If they want to hide like insects, then we will exterminate them like insects. Use your orbital bombardment weapons to destroy every building in every major population center. But, sir, we need the infrastructure intact if we want to use this planet for resource extraction. Destroying the cities will make the conquest pointless. The Harvester paused as he considered this problem. He had conquered 47 worlds, and every previous enemy had either surrendered quickly or been defeated in conventional warfare. Never before had he faced an enemy that turned their own cities into weapons and made occupation more costly than conquest. Very well, then. Double the number of ground troops on every continent. Send in the hunter-killer teams to track down the resistance. Leaders. These humans think they can hide from us, but we will find them and make examples of them that will break the spirit of their entire species. What the Harvester did not understand was that every human on Earth had already seen their friends and family members die in the initial attacks. Breaking their spirit was impossible because they had nothing left to lose except their freedom, and humans throughout history had shown they would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Meanwhile, in underground bunkers around the world, resistance leaders were coordinating the next phase of their campaign. Radio operator Sue transmitted coded messages between cells in different countries, sharing information about alien weaknesses and successful attack strategies. What worked against alien patrols in Seoul was immediately shared with resistance fighters in London, Paris, and New York. The aliens had expected to conquer Earth in a single day. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a grinding urban warfare campaign against 6 billion humans who had turned their entire planet into a battlefield. Every street corner was a potential ambush site. Every building was a potential fortress. Every human civilian was a potential enemy combatant. Captain Hyun received reports from resistance cells around the world as he coordinated the global defense from his bunker beneath Seoul. The news was both good and bad. Human casualties were enormous, but alien losses were much higher than the Harvester had expected. More importantly, the aliens were being forced to commit more and more resources to hold territory they had thought would be easy to control. Phase One of the resistance plan was working perfectly. The aliens were learning that conquering Earth would not be the quick, easy victory they had expected. 3 weeks after the invasion began, the Harvester stood in his command center staring at reports that made no sense. His forces controlled every major city on Earth, but somehow they were losing more ships and soldiers every day. What should have been a simple occupation was turning into the most expensive conquest in galactic history. Admiral Zex entered the command center carrying a data tablet filled with casualty reports. His expression was grim as he approached the Harvester, with news that no commander wants to hear. "Sir, we have lost 237 ships in the past week alone. Most were destroyed not by enemy weapons, but by sabotage, while they were landed for resupply operations. The humans somehow get inside our ships and destroy critical systems before our security teams can stop them." "How is this possible?" asked the Harvester. "Our ships have the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. No primitive species should be able to penetrate our defenses. The humans are not trying to penetrate our defenses, sir. They are bypassing them completely. They hide inside supply containers and maintenance equipment. They disguise themselves as our own technicians using stolen uniforms and forged identification. By the time we discover them, they have already planted their explosive devices." The Harvester walked to the large viewing screen that showed Earth turning slowly beneath his fleet. From space, the planet looked peaceful and quiet, but he knew that every continent was crawling with human resistance fighters who had turned warfare into an art form. What he did not know was that Mechanic Wu was at that very moment crawling through the ventilation system of one of his supply ships. Wu had volunteered for the most dangerous mission the Resistance had ever attempted. He was going to disable the ship's power core from the inside while it was docked at the alien base in Sydney, Australia. Wu had studied captured alien technical manuals for weeks, learning how their ships operated. The power core was located in the center of the ship, protected by multiple layers of security. But Wu was not planning to fight his way through security. Instead, he was going to approach the power core through maintenance tunnels that alien engineers used for routine repairs. The Resistance had discovered that aliens were very logical and systematic in their thinking. They planned for enemy attacks from outside their ships, but they never imagined that enemies might already be inside their ships before the attacks began. Human maintenance workers had hidden inside supply containers that were loaded onto alien ships during routine resupply operations. Wu reached the power core chamber and began placing small explosive devices at key points around the alien technology. Each device was no bigger than a coin, but together they would create a chain reaction that would destroy the entire ship. He had exactly 10 minutes to place all the devices and reach the escape pod that would get him off the ship before the explosions began. As Wu worked, he thought about his daughter Nari, who was fighting with resistance forces in the mountains outside Seoul. She had volunteered to join the most dangerous missions because she said someone had to make sure there was still a world left for the next generation. Her courage gave him strength to complete his mission, even though he knew he might not survive to see her again. The explosions began just as Wu reached the escape pod. The alien ship tore itself apart from the inside as critical systems overloaded, and power conduits ruptured throughout the vessel. Wu felt the ship shaking violently as he launched the escape pod and began his descent toward Earth. Similar sabotage operations were happening at alien bases around the world. In London, former computer programmer Jin had hacked into alien communication networks using captured equipment. She discovered that alien forces relied heavily on automated systems that could be reprogrammed if someone understood their basic operating principles. Jin had always been good with computers, but alien technology was unlike anything she had ever seen. The programming languages were completely different, and the hardware operated on principles that human science had never discovered. But Jin was patient and methodical. She studied captured alien computers for weeks until she began to understand their basic patterns. The breakthrough came when she realized that alien computers used the same basic logical structures as human computers. The languages were different, but the underlying mathematics were the same. Once she understood this principle, she was able to write programs that could infiltrate alien systems and cause them to malfunction in subtle ways. Her first successful hack caused alien transport ships to miscalculate their landing coordinates. Instead of landing at secure bases, they landed in areas where resistance fighters were waiting with heavy weapons. 12 alien transports were destroyed in a single day because their navigation systems had been programmed to send them into traps. Her second hack was even more effective. She programmed alien communication systems to broadcast false orders that sent patrols to wrong locations and caused supply convoys to deliver equipment to empty fields instead of forward bases. The result was chaos throughout the alien command structure as units lost contact with their commanders and critical supplies disappeared without explanation. The Harvester tried to counter these attacks by increasing security around all alien facilities. He deployed hunter-killer teams with orders to track down and eliminate resistance leaders. These teams were his best soldiers equipped with the most advanced weapons and sensors available to his forces. But the hunter-killer teams found themselves hunting ghosts. Every time they thought they had located a resistance cell, the humans had already moved to a new location. The resistance used a network of underground tunnels, abandoned subway systems, and hidden bunkers that allowed them to travel anywhere in the city without being detected by alien sensors. Captain Hyun coordinated these movements from his command bunker, using intelligence provided by thousands of civilians who acted as spotters and messengers. Every alien patrol was tracked and reported. Every alien position was mapped and analyzed. The Resistance knew where every alien soldier was at all times, while the aliens never knew where the next attack would come from. The most effective Resistance operations were led by former Special Forces soldier Day, who had trained with elite military units from around the world. He understood that the key to guerrilla warfare was not winning individual battles, but making the enemy afraid to leave their fortified positions. Day led a team of 20 fighters who specialized in psychological warfare. They would attack alien patrols and then disappear, leaving behind messages written in perfect alien language that said things like, "We are watching you and you cannot hide from us." The messages were designed to make alien soldiers paranoid and jumpy. The psychological campaign worked better than anyone had expected. Alien soldiers began requesting transfers away from Earth duty. Morale dropped so low that some units refused to leave their bases unless absolutely necessary. The Harvester found himself commanding an army that was afraid of an enemy they could rarely see and never predict, but the humans were paying a terrible price for their resistance. Entire city blocks were destroyed in alien retaliation strikes. Thousands of civilians were killed every day as the Harvester tried to break human morale through terror tactics. The aliens had decided that if they could not win through conventional conquest, they would win through sheer brutality. This strategy backfired completely. Instead of breaking human resistance, the terror tactics unified every remaining human on the planet. People who had never held weapons before volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Children as young as 12 carried messages between resistance cells. Grandparents who could barely walk volunteered to be suicide bombers against alien positions. Radio. Operator Sue broadcast messages of defiance to the world every night from hidden transmitters that moved constantly to avoid alien detection. Her voice became the symbol of human resistance as she shared stories of successful attacks and reminded everyone that freedom was worth any sacrifice. Tonight, another alien supply depot burned in Mexico City, she would announce. Tomorrow we strike, again in Berlin. The invaders thought we would surrender quickly, but they are learning that humans do not surrender. We fight for our families, our homes, and our future. Every day we grow stronger while they grow weaker. The Harvester realized that his conquest of Earth was failing, but he could not admit defeat to his superiors in the Galactic Empire. Instead, he requested more ships, more soldiers, and more weapons. He convinced his commanders that Earth was strategically important and worth any cost to conquer. What the Harvester did not understand was that every additional resource sent to Earth was a resource that could not be used to defend other parts of the alien empire. Other species that had been conquered by the aliens began to hear stories about human resistance. Some began planning their own rebellions, while alien forces were trapped in the endless war on Earth. The invasion that was supposed to take one day had lasted 3 weeks with no end in sight. The Harvester had committed 60% of his fleet to the conquest of Earth and still had not achieved victory. His reputation as an invincible conqueror was being destroyed by a species that had not even reached their own moon when his fleet first arrived. 2 months into the invasion, the Harvester made a decision that would change the course of the war. He ordered his forces to begin executing 100 human civilians for every alien soldier killed by the Resistance. The mass executions were broadcast across the planet as a warning that continued resistance would only lead to more innocent deaths. But the Harvester had badly miscalculated human psychology. Instead of discouraging resistance, the executions caused an explosion of rage that spread across every continent. Humans who had been sitting on the sidelines waiting to see how the war developed suddenly joined the resistance in massive numbers. The alien occupation forces found themselves facing not thousands of resistance fighters, but millions. Former police officer Kang had been trying to stay neutral and protect his family by avoiding the conflict. But when alien soldiers executed 50 civilians in his neighborhood, including children from the local school, he decided that neutrality was no longer possible. He joined a resistance cell led by Teacher Min, who had been organizing attacks against alien supply lines. "We cannot let them murder our people without consequences," said Kang as he met with other new volunteers in an abandoned subway station. "My daughter was friends with 3 of the children they killed yesterday. Someone has to make them pay for what they have done." Teacher Min understood Kang's anger because he felt the same fury burning inside his own heart. But he also knew that anger without planning was useless against an enemy with superior technology and firepower. "Your anger is justified, Kang, but we must channel it into effective action. The aliens want us to attack them in rage so they can destroy us easily. Instead, we will attack them with cold calculation. We will make them afraid to leave their bases. We will make them wish they had never heard of Earth." The Resistance had learned important lessons during the first 2 months of occupation. Direct attacks against heavily defended alien positions were usually unsuccessful and resulted in heavy human casualties. But indirect attacks against alien supply lines and communication networks were extremely effective and much safer for Resistance fighters. The aliens needed constant supplies of food fuel weapons and equipment from their ships in orbit. These supplies had to be transported to ground bases using alien aircraft and ground vehicles. The transportation network became the primary target for Resistance attacks because it was impossible to defend every supply convoy at all times. Mechanic. Wu had survived his sabotage mission and was now training other volunteers to disable alien vehicles using improvised explosive devices. The IEDs were made from common materials that could be found in any hardware store or farm supply depot. They were designed to look like ordinary debris that would not attract attention from alien patrols. The key to successful IED attacks was patience and careful observation. Resistance fighters would spend days watching alien supply routes to learn their schedules and identify the best locations for ambushes. They would plant devices during the night and then wait in hidden positions to observe the results. Engineer Gina had become an expert at building remote-controlled explosive devices that could be detonated from safe distances. Her team specialized in attacking alien convoys as they passed through urban areas where civilians could provide cover for Resistance fighters. The explosions would destroy alien vehicles, and then the fighters would disappear into crowds of civilians before alien reinforcements could arrive. But the most effective weapon against the alien occupation was not explosives or guns. It was information. Radio operator Sue had established a planet-wide communication network that allowed resistance cells to coordinate their activities and share intelligence about alien movements and weaknesses. The communication network used abandoned radio stations, hidden transmitters, and even modified alien equipment captured during successful attacks. Messages were sent using codes that changed daily and were broadcast during specific time windows to avoid detection by alien monitoring systems. Through this network, resistance fighters learned that alien forces were having serious supply problems. The constant attacks on their transportation network meant that many ground bases were running short of food, fuel, and ammunition. Some alien units had not received fresh supplies for weeks and were beginning to suffer from low morale and equipment failures. Captain Hyun decided to exploit these supply problems by launching coordinated attacks on alien storage facilities around the world. If the resistance could destroy enough stored supplies, the alien forces would be forced to withdraw or risk having their soldiers starve in hostile territory. The attacks were planned for the same day and time across all major continents. Resistance cells in New York, London, Tokyo, Berlin, Moscow, and dozens of other cities would simultaneously assault alien supply depots using explosives, infiltration, and direct combat when necessary. Former Special Forces soldier Day led the attack on the main alien supply depot in Seoul. The facility was heavily defended with energy barriers, automated weapons, and a garrison of 200 alien soldiers. But Day had discovered a weakness in the alien defense system during weeks of careful observation. The aliens relied on automated sensors to detect approaching enemies, but the sensors had blind spots where the detection fields overlapped. By approaching from specific angles and moving at precise speeds, it was possible to get within 50 meters of the facility without triggering any alarms. Day led a team of 30 volunteers through the sensor blind spots during a heavy rainstorm that interfered with alien detection equipment. Each team member carried enough explosives to destroy a building, and they were prepared to fight their way out if the mission was discovered before they could plant all their devices. The team reached the outer walls of the supply depot without being detected. They split into 6 groups and began placing explosive charges at critical points throughout the facility. The charges were set with timer delays that would create a cascade of explosions designed to maximize damage to stored supplies. At the same time, similar attacks were beginning at alien facilities around the world. In London, resistance fighters led by computer programmer Jin were using hacked alien access codes to disable security systems from the inside. In New York, Teacher Min was leading a diversionary attack that would draw alien defenders away from the main target. The explosions began at exactly midnight Earth time. Alien supply depots on 6 continents erupted in flames simultaneously as months of stored food, fuel, weapons, and equipment were destroyed in minutes. The coordinated nature of the attacks convinced the Harvester that he was facing a much more organized enemy than he had originally believed, but the Resistance paid a heavy price for these victories. Many of the volunteers who participated in the supply depot attacks did not survive the missions. Day was killed while fighting his way out of the Seoul facility after successfully planting his explosives. Teacher Min died covering the retreat of his team from the New York attack. Their sacrifices were honored by resistance fighters around the world who named operations after fallen heroes. The loss of the supply depots forced the Harvester to make difficult decisions about resource allocation. He could not afford to lose more stored supplies, but he also could not afford to withdraw significant numbers of troops from occupation duties to guard supply facilities. Every choice he made seemed to create new vulnerabilities that the human resistance was quick to exploit. The Harvester decided to change tactics completely. Instead of trying to occupy and control human cities, he would destroy them entirely and force the human population to live in designated refugee camps where they could be more easily monitored and controlled. The refugee camps would be surrounded by energy barriers and guarded by automated weapon systems. But when alien forces began forcing civilians into refugee camps, they encountered unexpected resistance. Families refused to be separated from each other. Communities refused to abandon their homes without a fight. Even civilians who had not previously supported the active resistance began attacking alien soldiers who tried to force them into camps. Grandmother. Park was 78 years old and had lived through the Korean War, the division of Korea, and decades of hardship. When alien soldiers came to her apartment building to force residents into a refugee camp, she met them at the door with a kitchen knife and a determination that surprised everyone, including herself. "You want to put me in a cage like an animal," she shouted at the confused alien soldiers. "I have lived free for 78 years, and I will not spend my last days as your prisoner. If you want to take me, you will have to kill me first." The alien soldiers had not been trained to deal with elderly civilians who refused to cooperate. Their orders were to use minimum force when relocating non-combatants, but Grandmother Park was clearly prepared to fight rather than submit to relocation. When they tried to restrain her, she fought back with surprising strength and determination. The incident escalated when other residents of the building came to help Grandmother Park. Soon, the alien soldiers found themselves surrounded by angry civilians armed with kitchen knives, baseball bats, and improvised weapons. What should have been a simple relocation operation turned into a riot that required backup forces and resulted in dozens of casualties. Similar scenes were happening in every city where 4 months after the invasion began, the Harvester received new orders from the Galactic High Command that changed everything. His superiors had grown tired of the endless reports about human resistance and mounting casualties. They gave him a simple ultimatum: complete the conquest of Earth within 30 days, or prepare the planet for total destruction. The Harvester stood in his command center staring at the destruction order that would eliminate every living thing on Earth. He had commanded fleets for 50 years and conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never been forced to destroy a planet that could have been useful to the Empire. The humans had cost him more ships and soldiers than all his previous conquests combined. But the Harvester was not ready to admit defeat. Instead of destroying Earth immediately, he decided to gamble everything on one final massive assault. He would commit his entire remaining fleet to simultaneous attacks on every human population center. If he could break human resistance in a single coordinated strike, he might still achieve victory without destroying the planet. What the Harvester did not know was that computer programmer Jin had achieved the impossible. Working with captured alien equipment and information provided by resistance cells around the world, she had successfully infiltrated the alien fleet's central computer network. She could monitor their communications and access their strategic planning databases without being detected. Jin discovered the Harvester's plan for the final assault 3 days before it was scheduled to begin. She immediately transmitted this intelligence to Captain Hyun and resistance leaders around the world using the secure communication network that radio operator Sue had established. For the first time since the invasion began, the humans knew exactly what the aliens were planning and when they were planning to do it. Captain Hyun called an emergency meeting with resistance commanders from every continent. The video conference included military leaders who had been fighting the occupation and civilian leaders who had been coordinating support activities. Everyone understood that the next few days would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or was destroyed completely. "The alien assault will begin in 72 hours, announced Captain Hyun as he shared Jin's intelligence with the group. They plan to attack every major city simultaneously using their remaining 8,000 ships. They believe that overwhelming force applied everywhere at once will finally break our resistance." General Smith from the United States studied the alien battle plans that Jin had intercepted. "This is their last desperate attempt to achieve victory. If we can survive this assault, they will have no choice but to retreat or destroy the planet. Either way, the invasion ends. But how do we survive an attack from 8,000 warships?" asked General Petrov from Russia. "We have been successful. because we could concentrate our forces against smaller alien units. We cannot be everywhere at once to defend against a global assault. Captain Hyun had been thinking about this problem since Jin first transmitted the intelligence about the alien plan. The humans could not match alien firepower, but they had one advantage that had served them well throughout the war. They understood their enemy better than their enemy understood them. "We are not going to defend against their assault," said Captain Hyun. "We are going to use their assault against them. When they commit every ship to the attack, they will leave their command vessels vulnerable. While they are focused on destroying our cities, we will be destroying their ability to coordinate and control their forces." The plan was audacious and extremely dangerous. Instead of trying to protect human population centers, the resistance would launch simultaneous attacks on alien command ships while those ships were focused on ground targets. Small teams of volunteers would use captured alien technology to infiltrate the command vessels and disable their computer systems from the inside. Jin would lead the most critical mission targeting the Harvester's flagship, which controlled the entire alien fleet. If she could disable the central computer core that coordinated fleet operations, the other alien ships would lose their ability to work together effectively. They would become individual targets instead of a unified force. The mission required Jinto reached the flagship using a captured alien shuttle while the battle was raging around Earth. She would have to dock with the command ship, penetrate multiple layers of security, and reach the computer core without being detected by alien security forces. The chances of success were minimal, but it was humanity's only hope for survival. Former Special Forces soldier Sue volunteered to accompany Jin on the mission, even though she had no technical training with computers. Her job would be to provide security and buy Jin time to complete the computer infiltration. Both women understood that they were volunteering for a suicide mission, but they also understood that millions of lives depended on their success. The final battle began exactly as alien intelligence had predicted. 8,000 warships descended from orbit and began systematically destroying every major city on Earth with weapons that could level mountains. The bombardment was so intense that it could be seen from space as the entire planet seemed to burn under the alien assault. But while the alien fleet was focused on ground targets, small teams of human volunteers launched from hidden positions around the world. They used captured alien shuttles and modified human aircraft to approach the alien command vessels during the chaos of the bombardment. Most of these suicide missions failed, but a few succeeded in reaching their targets. Jin and Sue approached the Harvester's flagship in a shuttle that had been captured 3 months earlier and modified with human technology. The shuttle's identification codes were still valid, which allowed them to request docking permission while the flagship was coordinating the planetary assault. "Landing Bay 7 is cleared for your approach," transmitted the alien flight controller, who was too busy managing the battle to question why an unscheduled shuttle was returning to the flagship. Jin landed the shuttle perfectly and walked calmly toward the flagship's interior as if she belonged there. She wore a captured alien uniform and carried forged identification that would pass casual inspection. Sue followed behind, carrying equipment bags that contained human computers and explosive devices. The interior of the alien flagship was like a small city with thousands of crew members working to coordinate the assault on Earth. Jin and Sue moved through crowded corridors, following memorized maps toward the central computer core. They passed dozens of alien officers and technicians without attracting attention because everyone was focused on the battle. The computer core was located in the most heavily defended section of the ship, protected by multiple security checkpoints and armed guards. But Jin had studied the security procedures during months of monitoring alien communications. She knew exactly how to respond to security challenges and had the correct access codes for each checkpoint. The final security checkpoint was guarded by 2 alien soldiers who were supposed to verify the identity of anyone entering the computer core chamber. Jin presented her forged identification and explained that she was responding to a technical malfunction that was affecting fleet coordination. "We were not informed of any technical problems," said one of the guards as he studied Jin's identification. "Documents. The malfunction just developed 5 minutes ago," replied Jin calmly. "Central Command sent me to investigate before it affects the planetary assault operations. Every minute we delay could cost us the victory we have worked so hard to achieve." The guard's radio crackled with reports from the battle raging below. Ships were requesting new target assignments and reporting successful strikes against human positions. The guard decided that Jin's mission was probably legitimate and activated the security door that led to the computer core chamber. Jin entered the chamber and found herself face-to-face with the most advanced computer system in the galaxy. The central core was a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with energy as it processed information from thousands of sources simultaneously. This single computer controlled navigation, communications, and weapon systems for the entire alien fleet. Working quickly, Jin connected her human computer equipment to access ports around the alien core. She had spent months learning how to interface human technology with alien systems, using hybrid programs that could bridge the gap between completely different technological approaches. The infiltration program began working immediately. Jin watched as human code spread through the alien computer network like a virus designed to disrupt rather than destroy. The program would cause subtle malfunctions in navigation and communication systems while leaving life support and basics, ship functions intact. Sue stood guard at the chamber entrance, monitoring alien communications on a portable radio. The planetary assault was reaching its peak as alien forces destroyed the last human population centers. But Sue could also hear reports of successful human attacks on other alien command ships throughout the fleet. "We have company," announced Sue, as she heard footsteps approaching the computer chamber. "Someone must have discovered that our identification documents were forged." "How much more time do you need?" "Just 2 more minutes," replied Jin as she worked frantically to complete the computer. Infiltration. The Great Retreat began at dawn on the 5th month of the invasion as the Harvester gave the order that no galactic commander had ever given before. "Abandon the conquest of Earth and withdraw all remaining forces immediately." What had started as the greatest military operation in galactic history was ending as the most humiliating defeat any civilization had ever suffered. Admiral Zek stood beside the Harvester as they watched the chaotic evacuation through the flagship's main view screen. Ships fled in every direction as their damaged computer systems provided random navigation coordinates. Some vessels collided with each other as they tried to escape Earth's gravity well. Others simply disappeared into hyperspace without reporting their destination or planned return route. "How many ships do we have left?" asked the Harvester as he watched his once mighty fleet scatter like frightened animals. "Approximately 1,000. "Vessels are still capable of interstellar travel," replied Admiral Zex, checking his damaged display systems. "Another 2,000 are too damaged to leave Earth's orbit. 3,000 were destroyed during the human counterattack. The remaining 3,000 are missing and presumed destroyed or captured." The Harvester felt something he had never experienced before in 50 years of conquest campaigns. He felt fear. Not fear of death or physical harm, but fear of returning to the Galactic High Command and explaining how humans with primitive technology had destroyed 90% of his fleet. His reputation as an invincible conqueror was gone, forever. But the worst part was not the military defeat. The worst part was that the humans had done something no conquered species had ever done before. They had captured intact alien vessels with their crews still alive. Those ships contained technology and information that could transform Earth from a primitive world into a galactic superpower within decades. Captain Hyun stood in his command bunker watching the alien retreat through satellite feeds that showed ships fleeing in panic from Earth's orbit. Around him, resistance leaders from every continent celebrated the impossible victory that no one had believed was possible 5 months earlier. But Hyun was not celebrating yet, because he understood that the real work was just beginning. "We have "Won the war," announced Captain Hyun to the assembled commanders, "but now we must win the peace. We have captured alien technology that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. But we must use this knowledge wisely, or we could destroy ourselves more effectively than any alien invasion." Lieutenant Nari entered the command center carrying reports from resistance cells around the world. The humans had captured over 200 alien vessels, including several command ships with complete databases of galactic civilization. They had also captured thousands of alien prisoners who possessed knowledge of advanced science, medicine, and engineering. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from alien ground forces on every continent," reported Lieutenant Nari. "Most of their commanders are requesting safe passage off-planet in exchange for providing technical information about their equipment and weapons." Captain Hyun considered the surrender offers carefully. The aliens had killed millions of human civilians during the occupation, but they had also provided humanity with the greatest opportunity in its history. The captured technology could eliminate poverty, disease, and environmental problems that had plagued Earth for centuries. Accept their surrender offers, but make it clear that they will be held accountable for war crimes committed during the occupation. However, any alien who provides useful technical information will receive better treatment and consideration for early release. The integration of alien technology into human civilization began immediately as scientists and engineers around the world studied captured equipment. Computer programmer Jin worked with teams of researchers to understand alien computer systems that operated on principles human science had never imagined. The possibilities seemed unlimited, but so did the dangers. Former mechanic Wu led efforts to reverse engineer alien spacecraft propulsion systems that could carry humans to other star systems within weeks instead of decades. The captured ships had faster-than-light drives that used exotic matter and energy fields to bend space-time itself. Understanding these systems could give humanity the ability to explore the galaxy. But the most important discovery came from interrogating captured alien officers who revealed information about galactic civilization that changed everything humans thought they knew about the universe. Earth was not an isolated planet in an empty galaxy. There were thousands of intelligent species spread across millions of worlds, and they were all connected by trade routes and communication networks that spanned the entire galaxy. The Galactic High Command that ruled most of known space was not invincible. They maintained control through fear and superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that could adapt and learn as quickly as humans had demonstrated during the invasion. Other conquered species were watching Earth's victory and beginning to plan their own rebellions. Radio operator Su established